Good morning. This is the morning moment for May the 6th, 2026, here on Following Him, the Disciple Life, Vivek, and the Sin of Partiality. Vivek Ramaswamy, who was formerly a presidential candidate, or running in the primaries, so a primary candidate, I guess you call a person when they're at that level. Recently, he won the nomination, has just won the nomination for the Republican candidate in the state of Ohio for governor. And you have people freaking out. And you have many that have been freaking out ever since he made some recent comments about his beliefs about Jesus. Now, his comments about Jesus, that essentially he believed that Jesus is like a son of God, but not the son of God in the way that Christians would state. I was not surprised at all. He's not a believer. He's not a believer in the biblical sense. Obviously, he has some level of belief, but it is a modified form, such as we often might see with somebody that is a Hindu or a Buddhist. But you have people freaking out about that, and you have the usual claims to the United States being a Christian nation and such, something I would actually strongly contest. And I am saying that from the standpoint of being a Christian. I would contest that we've ever been a Christian nation. But you have people that were very upset about that, and now he's won the nomination, and you have all sorts of proclamations about how horrible this is. And not everyone, but some of the usual suspects, your woke right types and such, are very upset, and others. And you have those that would vote against him because he is, to give them the benefit of the doubt, we'll say because he's Hindu. I think some, it's probably more than that. Because see, here's the thing. You have people, when it comes to our current president, President Donald Trump, who I am not MAGA. That doesn't mean I am opposed to our current president either. I agree with much of what he has done. I definitely have some disagreements with at least the way he's approached some things, and definitely with many things he's said. I take strong issue and condemn some things that he has said. I still find it just unfathomable, his words after Rob Reiner passed away. That was disgusting, inappropriate at best, disgusting and wicked at worst. And I would lean towards the latter. But that doesn't mean I disagree with him on everything. But here's the deal with President Donald Trump. You have many people claiming to be believers that it'll be pointed out to them Donald Trump's moral failings. And this is not to say that we aren't all flawed in some way spiritually, as far as we all end up making the wrong decisions. But, it'll be pointed out that he's not really a faithful follower of the Christ. And he's not. I would not consider Donald Trump to be a Christian. And when I say Christian, I don't mean that in the broad modern sense that he kind of sort of has a belief in Jesus, because he kind of sort of does. And he said very respectful things about Jesus. And I appreciate that. But as far as being someone that actually is abiding in Jesus' words and following his teachings, I mean, just his response alone to what Erica Kirk said when she was forgiving the alleged murderer of her husband, it tells right there he doesn't have the heart of Christ. Now, in some ways, in some things he does. In some things he is in alignment, but in many ways he's not. And yet, you have people on the right, people claim to be Christians, that will excuse this in our current president. Or I'm not going to say excuse this. I'll say that will say it's okay, because this is actually a similar argument I would make for him, because God can use sinful men. And this is true. This is true. Cyrus the Great Cyrus the Great was not a follower of the true God. Now there was a moment there where he had some good things to say, but no, he was not a proselyte to Judaism. There, I'd like to think maybe there's something unwritten where he did become a true follower, but yet he was God's anointed to carry out a specific purpose. Wicked people to accomplish good things. And so, yes, I do think that principle exists, but here's the deal. It also applies with a brown-skinned Hindu. This is where we get into, James warned us about holding the faith, the faith in Jesus in partiality, right? To do this from a standpoint of partiality. We're not to have partiality in how we carry out our faith. We're not to have partiality in how we apply Scripture, in how we live as disciples. And yet, with Donald Trump, it's all, well, God can use flawed, sinful, even wicked men. Totally true. I totally agree with that. I think Scripture supports that. And but despite this and this, he's also accomplishing this good thing and this good thing. I agree. I do think God has accomplished some good through Donald Trump. I think some good has been accomplished under his presidency. I would even go so far as to say good that wouldn't have been accomplished under alternatives to his presidency. I think in some ways he's been very effective. I think in some ways he's really blown it. But then to turn around and with Vivek Ramaswamy is like, oh, he's Hindu. Or even statements like, well, we need a real American. And I'm sorry, with some of these people, I'm like, okay, by real American, you mean less melanin in their skin, don't you? And that might not be the case with all. But when you look through what some of these people say, with many, that is the case. Even though the original inhabitants of this country, it wasn't the United States yet, but the original inhabitants of this land had more melanin in their skin. And you get us low melanin folks here, and suddenly this is what a real American is. That has changed over time. Vivek is a United States citizen. He couldn't be running for governor if he were not. He meets the constitutional qualifications to run for president again someday. But the idea, well, he's a Hindu, so we can't. But you have Donald Trump that occasionally says some good things about Jesus, and he's okay. Donald Trump does not set a good Christian example. So people are committing the sin of partiality when it comes to Vivek. They are holding him to one standard and not doing the same for Donald Trump. And just because Donald Trump has some good things to say about Jesus, I guarantee you Vivek has some good things to say about Jesus. If he gets a governorship, I'm sure he will have some statement to make around Christmas and around Easter, because he at least thinks Jesus is a Son of God. Now, yes, I know that's not sufficient, but he doesn't think badly of Jesus per se. So quit with the sin of partiality. God can use him. I'm going to pray that he wins, because these days the alternative will not be good for that state. I'm going to pray for his campaign, just as I'm going to pray for our current president. So let's quit being partial just because somebody maybe has different colored skin, or they're this false religion. Now this person, they also are not right with God, but this one, that one's a little bit weirder to me. Just let's just stop it. Let's be consistent in how we apply the faith. You have a good rest of the morning. Lord willing, be with you here in a little bit for Wednesday Words and Midday Moment, not necessarily in that order. And shalom.